I'd like to welcome our committee guests and committee members Louis Alford, Mylan Blake, Tim Mason, Bill Winters, and the mayor is not with us today, and also the members from the school board, Dr. Cash, and other staff from Broward County Schools. So could I get a motion that we approve the minutes from our previous meeting, which was held March 28th, 2024? You can see those minutes on pages 2 through 19. Could I have a second? Mr. Mason seconded. Thank you. So we'll go right into our agenda. And the first item on the agenda is item A. We're going to talk about building and grounds, and we'll start with Bradley Central High School Science Wing. Dr. Cash?
So thank you for inviting us today and reviewing some of the progress of where we are and where we've presented before. I'm actually going to turn this over to Corbett Drew. Of course, I will be here as well, and so I have other members, but we can go through each of those, and I believe you have received the presentation as well.
Thank you, Dr. Cash.
Good afternoon. Last time we met, we had an overview of kind of the estimated budget, and you saw that rendering of the science wing. The update for today is that per the state's FEMA reviewer, as of last week, state FEMA review is complete and going through the environmental and historic preservation review and technical. Those are the last ones that are pending. Once that is approved, then FEMA will, in theory, FEMA releases that check, and we begin with our next steps, which are to complete construction documents, go through the and start processing for a permit. Any questions on that one?
So what's your confidence level that you will receive the funding from FEMA for this?
So our confidence level is high. We know that as far as the environmental and historic part, we do not sit on any landfills or anything like that, and we are not a historic building, so we think that will go through fast. We do have a little concerns about the disasters that are now prevalent in the Northeast, that may affect their timeline, but we have been assured that that they will push it through the EHP and technical, and that we should be notified within months. So months is better than years, and so we're pleased about that.
Okay. So does anyone have any questions related to the Science Wing project? Commissioner Blake?
Dr. Cash, basically call it $12 million estimated budget. Is that the entire budget, or is that just their part of it? And you had to put in the furniture and so forth and stuff like that?
And I believe that we included everything in this budget per the request, but we also have, of course, we have the funds set aside for the upfront. We asked the architect to do a turnkey, because if we did not, we would have been struggling to find the furniture. So we do have in there anything such as science lab tables, all of those things would be in there, because most of them are permanent fixtures. And of course, we had to upgrade the site to meet their needs for it to be a shelter. So.
And of this amount, how much has already been spent?
I would have to refer that. I don't know if Ellen has that or Susan has that right now. We've spent.
It would be probably about 15%.
So you're still in drawings and architects?
So we completed schematic design, and it held at that point, and that's where we're going to be picking up at schematic design, making the revisions to harden those facilities to shelter standards, and then completing construction.
Thank you. That's all I have, Terrence.
Commissioner Alford?
When this building is finished, what's the capacity classroom-wise or emergency situation-wise?
I'm going to have to get back to you. I have that. I don't have that readily.
So we can have Lori create a list, Commissioner Alford, and then she can send that to them with questions that they're not able to answer today. We'll get those.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, I can probably get an answer before the end. Just not at the moment.
Okay, any other questions related to the science wing? Okay, we'll continue on.
So the Ocoee Middle School Building F addition, adding the 2 CDC classroom. We've completed documents. We're in the final throes. Should have the fire marshal, state fire marshals, and county building official approvals for permits any day. And the contract has been bid, and Wilder Construction or Wilder Contracting out of Chattanooga has been awarded the contract. And they are set to mobilize.
So are there any questions related to the Ocoee Middle School Building F addition? Commissioner Winters?
What will be your completion date there?
August of 2025. We are
A year.
there are I believe we have contractually obligated them completing prior to the start of school 2025.
Other questions? Okay.
That's it for building and grounds. I'm going to just move right into capacity and growth projects.
Sure.
Hopewell Elementary School funding was approved by the county commission. We've completed due diligence. Our survey is nearly complete at this point, and the architectural and engineering design is in process. We're anticipating that to 2025. Parkview Elementary School, we are working with the board to select an architect at this point, but the due diligence, our geotechnical fleet about to survey. So we're in the due diligence phase of that, and anticipate bidding that probably 3 months behind Hopewell. If everything goes well, will be late spring. Waterville Elementary School, we have the portables installed. The portables that the 2 classrooms that were discussed last time, those are installed. Students are in there. A little bit of a change of, a little bit of discussion perhaps on direction. The expansion that we were contemplating to relieve the pressure at Waterville could be alleviated with a new school back at Blue Spring, rezoning the Blue Spring students who shifted to Waterville, rezoning those back to Blue Spring. So our capital improvement plan is still indicating an expansion at Waterville, but that may be pulled out in favor of a new school at Blue Springs Road, where the school board already owns property.
So
That's a point of discussion for the board going forward.
So what is driving that change, or the request for that change?
Well, a new school at Blue Springs Road would not just alleviate the crowding at Waterville. It could rezone students when school there came offline. Those students ended up at Black Fox and Waterville and Oak Grove, and it would relieve 3 schools in Prospect. It would relieve 3 or 4 schools instead of just 1 school, and it would put the school back in.
And what is your timing for potentially building a new school on Blue Springs Road?
We can talk timing in the next part.
Okay. Are there any other questions so far related to what you have seen related to Hopewell, Parkview, or Waterville?
Talk to me about the portable units that you're going to be putting up. I'm old school. I remember the old portables. Tell me about those and how would that they fit into the movement of students throughout the campus.
So if you are looking at Waterville on the backside of the school on the wing, they sit to the left,
Okay.
and there are 2 of those. They are very different from the portables that we used to have. These cottages are they blend in with the school. They actually already have a skirt. They have a band at the top, and we'll get a picture and send that so that you can see that. What we're in process now, it should happen over fall break, is connecting that with awnings back to the school, so it blends into the school. They go in the back side. When they come in, of course, they're coming in the front door. Their exit is at the end of the hallway where the 4th and 5th grades are now.
That sounds great. Thank you.
Commissioner Alford?
Are these portables rented, purchased, or what?
They are rented.
What kind of money you looking at on a rental basis? Okay.
Commissioner Blake?
Thank you. So these portables, just estimate, how long will they be there? I'm sure they're not a permanent solution.
It's not intended to be a permanent solution, and if we move forward with the addition, the thought was these portables would not be there more than 5 years.
So it's safe to say a new school is what will eliminate the portables, not expanding anywhere or anything. It's the new school that will.
Expansion of capacity somewhere,
Right.
whether it's here or whether it's at Blue Springs, but an expansion of capacity somewhere.
So the portables are there until a new school is built.
Yes, sir. Until new classrooms.
Other questions? Okay. We'll continue on. Corbett?
So we talked about them. This is just to recap if we want to.
Sure.
The Hopewell Elementary School expansion is 3 phases. The first phase you'll see in yellow, you'll see a 2-story, 6-classroom expansion where the 2 portables currently sit. Once those are complete, students will move into those, and the adjacent building will be demolished. Those classrooms and the library will be moved into that new 2-story building. And then that building will be demolished. A gym, a music room, and a stage will be put up in its place. Once that's been online, then the existing gym will be renovated into the new library, and the cafeteria seating will be expanded as part of the 3rd phase.
Questions related to Hopewell? Commissioner Alford?
With the distance of these classrooms, how much population growth are you figuring? How many more kids you're going to put in there? How many you got now?
And I have the capacity for those right now. The capacity for Hopewell, and it's in your paperwork and slide. But what happens is you have 6 classrooms that are on the old edition. Those classrooms will simply move over. So you're ultimately creating about 6 new classrooms at 20 kids per spot. So you are, that's where you are. So your capacity will end up being around 600, which is the maximum that we would want any school to be. You also have to take out that because you are also looking at, you are right now, their capacity is 450. It moves that capacity to 620, but you're also building in some CDC classrooms, which will have a different limit, less than 20 in those CDC classes. You're welcome.
So the proposed expansion at Hopewell is about a 37% increase in capacity. Other questions? To recap, Parkview, we're looking at 8 classrooms added, 4 on the northeast side, 4 on the north side, and then renovating retrofitting a playground area that since we're taking away the playground for the 4 classrooms on the corner. The proposed expansion at Parkview would increase capacity from 435 to 495. That's an increase of 160 seats, 37% increase.
Can you say those numbers again?
Existing capacity 435, it expands it to 595, so it's an increase of 37.
Okay. Any questions related to Parkview?
In Parkview, the expansion, if you think about it in terms of cost per seat, Parkview is less expensive because the cafeteria and all the core facilities are sized for expansion. They were originally sized for, so we're not having to touch anything.
Commissioner Blake?
Dr. Cash, that brings up an interesting question. Would you do all these expansions, Hopewell, Parkview, Waterville, any of them? Is rezoning always going to be involved with
Yes.
these expansions, with these numbers of 37% for those two you just mentioned?
Well, with Hopewell, we are ultimately replacing some classes, so that doesn't give this
Right.
the expansion, but it allows for growth, which we're seeing quite a bit of growth on that end. If we had to rezone for that area, it would be looking at at Prospect over, because Prospect is
Right.
close to capacity too. But for Parkview, you're looking at that Michigan Avenue, Oak Grove, that triage that's right there, where we could rezone to populate Parkview because it's built for expansion and lower the numbers in some of the other schools.
Okay, let me say what I think you just said. So when Hopewell is done and Parkview and all these, you're gonna rezone from schools that are at capacity, in this case Hopewell to Parkview. So Parkview will lower its census or number of students, and Hopewell will
Not
go up.
Hopewell. Parkview is going to pick up from Michigan
I'm sorry,
Avenue.
Prospect. I'm sorry.
Yeah, yeah. Prospect would be an area that we would look at if we needed to rezone, because they're on each end of the roads if we had to. Right now, the space that's coming to Hopewell is really based on the expansion that we're starting to see with the number of students that are coming in, and they are our zone students. They are not out of zone students that are coming in at this point. We are turning away a lot of out of zone requests because we just simply don't have space.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Alford?
Yes, you're talking about zoning. Is the board, or when will the board start really getting serious about rezoning a lot of your elementary schools?
Well, when you're looking at at minimum an 18 to 24 month at minimum build, the process of rezoning starts with our transportation department and looking at where are all those kids, because it's really about bus routes and where it's easier to rezone and pull buses to. They are actually looking at that now. It won't be presented for quite some time because it's a huge task.
I was just
They're-
wanting to make sure we're starting on
Oh
it
no,
now.
they've been working on it since last year. You're welcome.
Commissioner Winters?
Drew, this is for you. With the supply chain challenge like right now more than ever before with the strike coming on, what do you think as far as materials, as far as building supplies? I know it's been delayed prior to this thing, but with the shipping
It has
strike coming, what do you think as
well,
we
there's
get
a
into
hand
it?
grenade in the system at this point. Obviously, it's not just materials coming from overseas. That would impact lighting. That would impact electrical boxes quite a bit, and steel. But we've also got some infrastructure challenges between here and the East Coast as well. And there's going to be a lot of materials that get converted to rebuilding Carolina, Georgia. So all that to say, it's really hard to say. The good news is we have seen some relief from the post-COVID price hike, the spike. We have seen some relief from that. These budgets are based on the post-COVID spike. So any relief that has been realized, I think we tried to build a little bit of buffer. The last thing we want to do is come back and ask for more to the school board or to the county commission. So we've tried to build these budgets in a way that would reflect it is in fact starting 3 years from now, 5 years from now, and not today.
Right.
So we built a little bit of inflation into these, and I think we've been conservative on the numbers.
I appreciate the budget.
Yes, sir.
My concern would be the timeline. Getting items, brought in time with all the details you're going to have to deal with. That's the
I
question.
think
You'll be on top of that. You'll know before
massively
we do.
large-scale projects, there's going to be impact on these expansions. I don't really see a lot of impact. I hope that statement is right. Any other questions on Parkview? Waterville, again, The proposed expansion at Waterville, again, added 8 classrooms on the south end, expanded some storage and restrooms for the gym, expanded the cafeteria. But again, this project versus a new school on Blue Springs is still strategically it's an item that remains in discussion. Any other questions? That moves us to the potential site acquisition property that are being evaluated for new schools. As we know, property is not getting any less expensive in Bradley County. A 51-acre site's been identified on Lauderdale Memorial Highway, been approved for purchase by the and funded by the Board of Education for a planned future middle school. The budget amendment that affects that is pending with the county commission. A separate 30-acre parcel has been identified, and negotiations have begun on a 30-acre parcel, and let's just say it's on the northeast corridor, and that remains in negotiation. And that would be funded again by the Board of Education. That would be for a elementary school on the northeast side. That would alleviate some of the pressure from the east side and from and then the last piece is down on the south side. The school system owns the 19 acres on Blue Springs Road, and that's an ongoing discussion.
So, are there any questions about the potential site acquisitions?
But I reserve the right.
Maybe.
The enrollment by school.
So if you currently look at the drawings that are at each school, you will see that each one has a capacity of students relative to where we are with a 24-25 enrollment. But when these buildings were built, the majority of them, I would probably tell you, you only have 2 that Parkview has a few more reliable spaces for small groups, but because of the state of Tennessee that mandates RTI, which is response to intervention, a lot of small groups going on all day. You also now have mandates for tutoring, and so when you look at the capacity, one of the things to note is that there is no space available in the majority of these schools because they are now being used for intervention, small group, and special services as those groups continue to rise. We also have schools that are taking classrooms and dividing them up into smaller petitions so that we can serve those students that are mandated to be served in a small group. When I say small group, you are looking from 5 to 10 students. Anything above that does not meet the mandates for the state of Tennessee. And so there's where you are right now with the capacity that's there in our 24-25 enrollment. You can see almost all of them have very little room for more students. And we also want to note that, again, your capacity numbers are based on the big capacities, cafeteria, gym, as well as the classroom space. So a lot of these to touch the current existing is not available because then you have to change your core, which is exceptionally expensive. But you can walk through the schools now. There is very little space anywhere. I want to point out that particularly at the high schools, Bradley and Walker, the classrooms are being doubled so that when a teacher is on break, you have another group coming in to use that classroom. So you are using the facilities to the highest capacity that they are now.
So, are there any questions? Commissioner Alford?
Do you think helping turn away some of the kids that want to go to your Bradley or your elementary schools has helped your enrollment to some degree as far as keeping it a little bit lower than normal?
You would hope so, but it seems like the number that I turn away within 2 weeks, I'm having more enroll. So I got a call this week that said, "Do you have another teacher in your budget?" And I said, "Why?" And they said, "Because we just enrolled 5 more kids." And you have to remember, depending on where those kids are deposited, in the lower classrooms, your limit is 20 kids per class. In the upper classrooms, you're at 25. I have some of my upper classrooms that are teetering right on that 25, 26 board. So if I get 3 more kids, that pushes me statutorily to hire another teacher. But the problem is, I don't have another classroom. So now, yes and no. If I'd taken those kids, I would be in much more jeopardy of not meeting the state mandate. So that's why we are truly at capacity, but they're still enrolling, and they are zoned for us. So we also don't have those choices. I would tell you, Mr. Alford, probably last week I had 15 across the district, 15 to 20 more kids enroll. So they're still coming.
Are they coming from parents that are moving into town, or where do they coming from? do you
Some
think?
of them are coming in from parents that are moving into town, and some of them are coming from moving in with foster families. So there are with foster families that live in our district. So there's a variety, but most of it is they're moving into the district.
These mostly ESL kids?
Uh, Not necessarily. We've got a variety, but we still have kids. Our EL kids are constantly increasing, but they're not in droves like they were before. There may be 2 or 3 at a time, versus before we would have large numbers. We've got a lot still coming in from outside of Tennessee.
How close are we vetting that in any form or fashion? Does school vet these kids in any form
We
or
check
fashion
their
as far as where they're living and who
Yes,
they're
sir.
living
We
with?
we check addresses. They have to provide all the documents for residency, and then we contact their former schools to get all their records as well. So we follow all the guidelines.
What if they don't have a formal school?
Well, if they're homeschooled, they still have to produce some kind of records, but then we do check their residencies. You're welcome.
Other questions? Commissioner?
The total population of ESL.
We
What
are,
we-
we
what
are, I wouldn't be able to give you a straight percentage, but I can tell you we're still hitting that 30% increase.
Mhm.
So I would tell you that I hired 3 new teachers this year
Yeah.
for the EL population. And then I am looking at most likely having to hire another one to meet that 1 to 35 ratio.
Is there a difference ESL and EL?
No, sir, they
Same-
just,
same
they
stuff.
just exchange them back and forth.
Okay.
Next year, it may
Okay.
be
Yeah.
ESL. I don't, they just keep changing that. They meaning the federal government.
Mhm. How is the teacher stress with the number of kids that don't speak at least any English language?
So it depends on whether they're first year students, first time English speaking into or where they are. I will give a shout out to Dana Yost and her EL
Mhm.
team with the training that they've done. They do a
Yeah.
lot of inclusion training.
Yeah.
We have
Right.
a lot of inclusion and a lot of pull out. The new mechanisms for translating are in there.
Mhm.
As far as I know this technology is an amazing thing when it works. So there's actually a pen that is that will translate for them,
Mm.
and then they can put. There's a program where they have headphones, and while the teacher is speaking, it will also translate
Oh.
for them. So we're investing into a lot of
Great.
that, but we're also being 100% sure that we are engaging them in learning English. So it's wide, but because we're keeping up with those ratios that are necessary, the burden is not as hard on a classroom teacher, but it is still there, most definitely, because they want those kids to learn and grow, and they're in their native language. That's hard for a classroom, so they get a lot of pull out help, and they again have to be in small groups for those types of things.
I've got one more, and I'll just stay on
Yes,
this
sir.
line for a minute. Um, I have good friends that live in Ohio and live in that little town that had buses come in and drop off people that could speak no language, no English language, and having to deal with that. And my nightmare is thinking that out in this community would come those buses that would drop them off. What would we do? I'm not asking you at this point what you would do. I think we should stay in our minds that at some point that could happen. And I've always thought maybe we could do an academy. I think I mentioned something like that to you in the past, or you could actually, for non-speakers that really are having difficulty, have a place they could go and then be transitioned into the regular classroom, but kind of make it an honor to be in that. Thank you.
And with that, we just again included the same kind of graphical representation showing the growth on the northwest corridor. These photos are older homes, most of these lots now. North corridor and the east side. Now shifting to kind of budgets and timelines. Here. Zoom out a little bit further so you can't read any of these.
I'm sure Commissioner Blake can still read those numbers.
All right, so lists all the all the billions of people watching from home. Okay. We've got the just to walk you through the spreadsheet, and then we can kind of dive in. But the projects are listed here, the estimates for each of those particular projects, and then the cost is cast forward. You'll see the hard lines are fiscal years, and then the years and the months are calendar. The color code here refers to due diligence design. The darker it gets, the further along the process it is until it's complete and move-in ready, which is the darker color. So these totals that you see here are fiscal year totals. And with that, I think we can dive in here. The security vestibule is slated to be completed. It's actually a little bit delayed. We ran into some geotechnical issues with the footings, but should have that wrapped up by Christmas. Finally getting some good headway there. Ocoee Middle School, again, should have that wrapped up by the start of school for the 2025-26 school year. The science wing, tentatively, we had gotten some guidance that said that was going to be a little faster, and so we've cast it here. That will obviously get delayed depending on the FEMA check, the arrival of the FEMA grant. But the total for that it still reflects at the 11.9. Hopewell, the 15.1 million is comprised that the county commission approved is comprised of 3 phases. Those 3 phases occur over a period from fiscal year 24-25 all the way out until the 3rd phase is complete, which is projected start of school of 27. Again, the timing of that will work out with the finance as needed. Parkview is 3.9 million, and again, we're probably 3 or 4 months behind on this one, but anticipate awarding that in probably May of 25. So the timing of some of these is getting pushed out. Obviously, haven't started. Waterville, we were projecting to commence that design in fiscal year 25-26. So that leaves some time to have those strategic discussions and collectively decide, are we going to Blue Springs or are we going to expand Waterville? And then after the expansions, this does not include the proposed land costs. This is just construction, but you'll see a new elementary school on the north, which is what we feel is the most immediate need from a capacity perspective. You would see that commencing in 27, and then construction commencing in the 27-28 fiscal year. And as that one was complete, we would start design we would start design on a second one while the first one was under construction, so that you could roll from construction of one right into construction of the second elementary school, and then eventually at the completion of the second elementary school would roll into construction of the third elementary school, which would wrap up all the expansions, new schools by school year start of school of 2032. So collectively, there's a lot to chew on. Collectively, this represents this represents a total 8-year investment of about $156 million, of which 35 are currently funded. 114 are future and not funded yet. And then Waterville will just leave in a separate category as to be determined. That 156, by the way, is redundant. It includes Blue Springs and Waterville. So obviously, both of those would not happen. But it's a lot to chew on. Any questions?
Questions? Commissioner Blake?
So this is the 30,000 foot level. Well,
Very-
actually,
very much so.
might as well go to 60,000 feet level. But if I understand, if you scroll over to, I guess, column B or whatever, way over there, essence, if that number that you have at the end there for, I see it's like 14 miles.
Which column are you saying?
14,000,000,003.
This summary down here.
Yeah. So you've got that right there. At 14, then it goes to 17 and so forth. I'm assuming that that's your fund balance amount after the end of the budget year. So that's how much you're going to appropriate in your 177, right?
That's the whole project.
So how are we supposed to interpret? What is the meaning as the numbers go up and down? Because you get to, I think, 2027, and that takes a massive jump if I saw it.
So this 625,000 is cast across the duration of that project. Similarly, each of these numbers is cast across the duration of that project.
Right,
and then,
that's your cost.
and then correct.
Yeah.
And then the total of all of those projects that are proposed within that fiscal year
That's
total down to this.
Okay. So
that's
when you get over to
effectively that's a cash
you go
flow
from
analysis.
11 million to 21
21.
million. I guess that's because the new school's online. All right.
Correct.
Can't see that on the other side. So 2028 is when we're going to start building the school, according to this.
Yes.
Go ahead. Oh,
And so which elementary school would
Sorry.
you want to build first? Would it be potentially Blue Springs, or would it be the north?
So again, that's a discussion with the board, but my recommendation would be to build Blue Springs. We'd still have to watch Waterville, and one of the reasons my recommendation is to build Blue Springs first is it not only alleviates several schools, but we're also still seeing the population at Waterville grow. So that would be my recommendation. And then I think you still have to know that as our community changes and grows, we'll have to adjust some of this, adjust zoning, but my recommendation to the board, after discussing, the timeline and what we need, would be to start with Blue Spring, because I can pull enough kids, specifically out of Waterville, to alleviate some of the stress on Waterville. while at the same time pulling from those new kids that are coming in, moving into those neighborhoods, we can adjust for that too. That would be my first recommendation. My second recommendation would be to build another elementary school on the north end, depending on if we still see that growth, which that's what we're still seeing. And then your last one would be a new middle school. That would be the very last, because as all those elementary students keep coming in, you're going to have somewhere for them to feed in a middle school. And as you can see, our middle schools are already well over 1,000 kids in them.
Questions?
I don't have a question. I just find it interesting that Blue Springs is where the growth is. When we
Well-
when we hear
Well, remember,
developers tell us that they're going north, and
What-
we saw a map the other day
Yeah,
that
but-
everything's going north.
but remember, Blue Springs would take in existing students that are now feeding Waterville. That before the Blue Springs school was demolished, that's where those students went. So that automatically takes
Right.
about well over 200 kids out of Waterville Elementary and allows me to pull from Black Fox and other surrounding schools as they begin to grow as well.
We don't have enough right now to, I mean, we just approved of R1 zoning for apparently 500 houses that's still whatever, and then we know that there's another lot coming, I mean, and that's all up north.
Mhm. But-
So I guess what you're saying, I know, you build Blue Springs and you get 400, 500 kid capacity as an elementary school, all right? And then you take from Waterville, and I guess it's just, you guys are gonna have to do some massive rezoning.
Yes, and we know that, but you also have to remember the zoning for that Blue Springs area. We just go back into the map and look at those neighborhoods, and the map automatically does a count of how many students were there. It is a massive undertaking, but that's what we're saying. In order to relieve one school, I'm also looking at a growth on another. So we've got a capacity issue right now at Waterville, and then when we add to Parkview. Now I'm taking kids that would or could be zoned to Michigan Avenue and some of the Oak Grove, and I can move those into Waterville. So, but you're still going to have that steady growth, which is why you need to be looking not just at one elementary school, but two.
That's not, yeah, you said exactly. I mean, I guess you got the capacity of what you have right now. When you take a snapshot right now, and you got to deal with that, but then look 60 months ahead.
Yes.
And we know that, just a 60,000-foot level,
You-
500 houses, one kid per house. I mean, that's a school right there.
Yes, sir.
And that's by the golf course. I mean, that's
Mhm.
not Southwest. So, I mean, So-
That's why now some of those kids can also, you will be rezoning some of that area will rezone to Parkview. So you've got multiple options that are happening right in there. Michigan Avenue does not have actually the property for us to
right.
to do much of anything with. I mean, I might could get 2 or 3 classrooms, but then I'm having to rearrange the cafeteria, the library, a lot of those. But your population is going to continue to grow. So to have a long range plan means on top of building the first school, you're building the second. I think the Board of Ed will have a long discussion about, is it best for them to add on to Waterville? My recommendation would not be that because it's already over 600 kids.
Right.
But at the same time, if we add there, is that going to just maintain what we have? And then we're still looking at building another school. So
So that's the $60,000 question, or how much? I don't know. When are you going to ask for a new school? When is the school board and you going to ask for a new school?
well, again, that's a discussion with the school board, but I don't think that, I think you're looking at after all the projects are done with Hopewell, the ones that we have in action now. But I would recommend doing the front planning as soon as we can so that when we do, so you're probably looking at 27, 28, which we're already hitting 25. So
Yeah. Thank you. That's good.
now they may direct me differently. So, but that's what I see.
Well, I
is that-
mean, it wouldn't be totally unreasonable if we know we got the growth. We got to know, and we know it's sustainable. So in the next year or two, ask for the school and start. I mean,
yes.
if you were to say, if your school board was to vote to ask for a new school tomorrow, and then the county commission funded it the next day, how long would it take to get to school where we're doing a ribbon cutting? I mean, it's
30 months.
30, you say 30 months?
2.5 years.
Okay, so if you ask for it in 2027, it'll be 2029. I'm using, right? Before, I'm just thinking, you tell
Right.
me where I'm right or wrong.
Right, right. And you know, the hard thing right now, Commissioner Blake, is that we're seeing the population grow in pockets everywhere, and then we see new subdivisions going in. So you're dealing with neighborhoods that there may be older families that have moved out, and now we have newer families moving in with children. So you've got old neighborhoods that are gaining students, and then you've got new neighborhoods that are coming up with students. So we're just trying to be as forward-thinking as we can and as proactive as we
I
can.
know. Real quick, the numbers that you gave as far as a new school goes, that's is if you were to ask for it right now, or did you project with cost of inflation and what it would be in 2027?
That's reflective of new elementary schools built
Today.
currently.
So obviously with a 3, 4, 5% increase, I mean, it'd be a bit
Well,
more.
again,
But when you're talking
there
millions,
could be some there could be some additional inflation between now and then, but the hope was when we projected these numbers is that we're at the peak of the market and that construction costs are going to alleviate a little bit over the next few years. I have some comfort with these, but I think they're conservative. But yeah, 5 years of hyperinflation that we've seen, these numbers.
which is why you're
They're
trying to
gonna
buy your property now. All right. Thank you.
So
Commissioner,
the notion would be, sorry to interrupt.
go ahead.
The notion would be we plan based on the projection, get the land, and hopefully we can execute and get the design in hand, and that expedites the time frame. So then you plan based on the projections, and then you build based on the actual. And if we can get through the land acquisition and we can get through the design and permitting, the bigger dollars are obviously on the construction, and then we can shorten that from 30 months down to 18 to 24. And so then when the need is there, then it's a much quicker turnaround.
Commissioner Mason?
I think also we just, this commission just passed 250 homes in the Spring Place area too, and that's going to probably affect Valley View, Waterville also.
Are there
What do you
other
think about it?
questions? Okay.
Just one other, do y'all bid out architectural? Or construction companies that's gonna be doing all this building, is all that bid out?
So the construction companies are absolutely, they are bid. They're competitively, publicly bid, public opening per the statutes. Architectural services, professional services for instance, legal, architects, engineering, those folks, when life safety is involved, those professional services are not technically allowed to be bid, but we do sometimes ask for proposals, and we review qualifications and interview those candidates. And we'll evaluate that. But when it comes to life safety and professional services, those are not bid; those are negotiated. Is that a fair way to say it?
Just an update. Ms. Yost just sent a text that we are now, our population of EL students are up to 500.
From,
That would be a question. Well, I can tell you less than 3 years ago, I was probably about less than 200.
I see Mr. Goff sitting back there.
yeah,
Could you tell us how many ELs students you got in the city right now? Can't hear, I know.
Okay, are there other questions related to the timeline for educational needs with estimated cost? Yep. Lori will get us a copy. Okay. Dr. Cash, do you or Corbin have anything else you want to share before we go on out of to other business?
Just to note that, Bradley County schools, we pride ourselves in serving our students and serving our students well. So it does take the cooperation of all those involved with being sure that we have schools that serve students in a very high capacity with high educational goals. That also attracts businesses and industry. So to be able to say that we're looking to the future and trying to be sure that we are doing our due diligence in preparing to continue to educate those kids speaks highly of the school board and of the commission. And also the students that we serve, just a shout out to our teachers and our administrators every day that they come in. It's not just the math, science, reading, and everything that they're working with. They are working with making sure those kids are fed. They're working with making sure those kids have clothing, that if they need a counselor is available. So it's much, much more than it was even 10 years ago as to the needs that we're servicing. And it's just, I think you should be very proud of the teachers and administrators, the central office that really go above and beyond to reach every kid. And I'm thankful to be here. I'm thankful for the support that we have. And even though it's kind of daunting to realize that we're growing, it's also a testament to the work that they do. So I just want to say thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Cash. So is there any other business? I'll get to him when we have communication from the audience. Just a second, please. Any other business? Okay, is there communication from the audience? If there's anyone in the audience that would like to speak, you can come to the podium and speak. City Councilman Goff?
Hey, I was just looking at my notes, and Commissioner Alford had asked. So, notes that I had was 34 ESL teachers in the city right now. Every 35, about 1,200.
Anyone else like to speak today? I appreciate this school board members being here today. Dr. Cash, Corbin, Kyle, Susan, Ellen. We appreciate you coming and meeting with us today. I'm sure that we will have further questions in the days and weeks to come. And so we